You know, I haven't had the opportunity to really research Malcolm X's agenda. I have Martin Luther King's agenda on economics. I've seen a lot of civil discussion, a lot of civil, you know, fights, but the economic fight I definitely haven't seen. And I was, just on a side note, as you answer that question, I was a parent that taught my child to sit in. You know, we have to teach our children these things. They don't know, you know, when an injustice happens, what to do, and to show them to do it the right way. Because I went to Stony Brook and we would sit in. You know, we took that stand. So we do have to teach our children. So your family's view on the economic agenda, because we talk civil all the time.
Right. When my father was alive, I wish I had the list. I have another book that I edited on my father's diaries, and I list out all of the things that he accomplished while he was with the Nation of Islam. And one of the things, I mean, many schools, you know, they built schools to educate the children. But one of the things is that the Nation of Islam owned the largest, they were the largest business owners under my father's leadership, under my father's tutelage. And so they had the largest, not just black owned, but the most businesses during that time, during the 1960s. I wish I had this list of, you know, I break down all of the things that they were able to accomplish.
So business ownership.
Well, not just business ownership.
I mean,
it was
not
just. Oh, I mean, definitely economics, you know, is extremely important to our community. Some people think that when you are supposed to be a Pan-Africanist, that you're not supposed to focus on your livelihood. But the livelihood was absolutely important. Economics was definitely important.
Thank you.
Yes?
When I was
Please stand so we can hear you.
I'm sorry. I was raised in Harlem. I didn't want to come up on this, but I was raised in Harlem, and I have been at many rallies where your father spoke. On 116th Street, I live on 120th. They had the barber shop, they had a clothing store, they had a restaurant, they had one on 125th Street. So in reference to
lots of real estate throughout the country.
Yeah, they have property. In reference to her question, that's why this came back up. They had a thriving economical business area going for them that was respectable, where you could go and get suits, the shirts, ties, you know, business was going strong, where it was right next to the mosque.
Right, it was all about economic development.
It was about economic development. And that's a product from Garvin Knight too, because his was about economic development.
Right, there's a lot to learn from Malcolm X also. Yes?
That's it.
Hello, how are you doing? It's nice to meet you. My name is Greg Fielding. I'm a local resident. I'm here. Your father's a very great man. I'm going to make it very quick. How did you and your sisters learn of your father? He expired in 1965, and you never really knew him, I'm assuming. Have you ever known
our father?
Yeah. You have known your father? How did you learn of his greatness? Were you taught by your mother, or did you learn it in school?
And my mother was very strategic when she raised her girls. She kept his presence alive, his clothes, his books, all these things were a part of our household. And she kept our father alive in our homes and in family and so forth.
I think that's very great. I did not learn of your father a lot until I got older and got interest. I think most young people had who came up through the school did not realize what a lot of the older people did for us. So we took it for granted. But as we get older, we learn more about the greatness of our past. Yeah. And your father was one of the greats.
Thank you for all your questions. This is the last comment, and then we have a presentation from Ms. Shabazz.
To my friend, Yasa Shabazz. So I stand here before you, and my mind is all over the place. So I'm thinking, do I talk about us being 18, sitting in parks? Do I fast forward to us being 25, right out of college? Do I fast forward to even seeing you and you letting me know, love your mother, Joy, love her heart, because you had just experienced your mother's transition And I held on to that. Do I fast forward to Atlanta, Georgia? We had some opportunities to talk about growing up X and being able to, what we considered an intimate conversation with a room full of people like this. So when that happens, when I'm in a room with you, you know, we lock into each other. And just like that, the room, not that it disappears, but we have an opportunity to say some things to each other that we hope and we pray impact our community. So with that said, I stand here before you as a past director here at this library, and you stand in the role that you are today. That's a 360. We have an opportunity to engage at this level, but we know the conversation now is in a bigger room, it's a bigger platform, we get to impact the world. So that said, I heard a number of things being said by very young people, college-age students, and I thought about what we talked about when we were in college. And the comments that she was making, I don't remember us making those comments or having that conversation. But what I do remember that we were filled with bingies and all kinds of other kind of celebrations that were preparing us for the conversation we're having today. So with that said, you talk a lot about the value system. And even as I stand in front of you, I get a little giddy and excited because I have my parents here in the audience who sent me to New Paltz with a value system. And when I got there, I encountered you who had this amazing value system. And so many others at that time who came in the room with a value system. It didn't mean they didn't come from some really harsh situations from their home. But they brought love, and they brought that excitement and that passion that you talk about your dad. So we all entered the room with that. And even now I get an excitement because I know there are young people here today who have that drive, who have that excitement. So as I stand here with you, I see stories that are coming. They still need to come. And in particular, I'd like to hear a story from you about your mother. Is that in the works? A story about the Dr. Betty Shabazz, because I know how relevant and how important and how major she was, not just, of course, in your life and your sister's lives, but how that value system that she had in place in which you watched on a very strong Black woman is what we see here today. It's a huge result. So I know we're talking a lot about Malcolm, but you are both Malcolm and Betty. So this Betty can story as well.
I want to say first to the sister, I went to school with all white people, you know, and I didn't go to school with white people because my mother wanted me to be with white people. I went to school with a lot of white people because my mother wanted me to have a quality education, and it just so happened that the other children who were going to that school's parents could afford that. I don't know how my mother did, but she did it for all 6 of her girls. But I never was in school ever trying to impress anyone or ever trying to take on someone else's burden. If they didn't get it, that was on them, you know? And if I could enlighten them, that's great. But if I couldn't, I had to just leave it there. You know, leave it there, leave them there, and keep on with my life. Because, you know, one of the things I'm really grateful for is that I've always been very, I'm not going to say self-assured always, but as far as being a person of color, you know, I've always been, like, good. You know, my parents definitely made sure of that. I know when I went to college, people were chasing me around campus, saying, "You Malcolm X's daughter, you Malcolm X's daughter," and I didn't know. I was like, "Whoa, you know, who am I supposed to be?" You know, I had just gone to school with all these white people, right? And I wasn't like, you know, say a lot of Black and I'm proud, even though I was. You know, I was like, just say no to drugs, you know. So what I had to understand, you know, by going to my mother is, as long as I like the person who I was, I could look in the mirror and I'm good with that, and I'm good with God, that was really all that mattered. And I got that from my mother, and I'm so grateful for that. My mother inspired me in so many ways. And I think that's what this book is about. You know, she inspired me in so many ways. She gave me such, like, my backbone. She gave me everything. You know, it doesn't matter who I'm around. People, you know, sometimes your own people want to, you know, challenge you. You're not Black enough, you're not, you know, whatever it is. But it doesn't matter. You have to just stand on your own and know that's their stuff. You can only do your part. And I got that from my mother, and I'm really grateful for that. So yes, I am. I think it's also very important that sometimes people don't realize that our power lies within one another. You know, when you look like one another. Sometimes we run to other places because, you know, we don't see ourselves. Sometimes our men might not want us, right? But they have to understand that their power lies within us, and vice versa. And, you know, so my father understood that, and my mother understood that. And so my next book I'm working on now is about a young brown girl, you know, and all of who she was, and how inspirational her story is as a child, you know, and all that she was able to become, you know, so that she could go off and be the woman that my father would select, to be his wife and to be the mother of his children, and know that she had his back, you know, and would have his back even when he died, to appropriate his legacy, as people tried to say Malcolm was something that he wasn't. So I just think that, you know, we all have a story, and it's very important to tell our story, and it's very important to inspire our young people, ourselves, that they should look at us. They should look at us as a reflection of who they are and be empowered by that. That they should not look into a face of someone that doesn't look like them to give them help and to tell them that they're worth something, but that they should get that from us. They can get it from other people, of course, but that they have to get these things from us. So, you know, I am most definitely working on another story about young Betty in Detroit. And, you know, so I think that's just important. Because my mother definitely inspired me and gave me a backbone and everything else that I need to carry with me, because I do travel around the world. And one of the things in traveling around the world is, you know, is understanding that everybody wants their children to feel self-love, and they want them to have a quality education so that they can participate in mainstream America and have a healthy life. And you know, and you need self-love, and you need a quality education of some sort.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
What was that young lady going to say back there? I'm just really curious.
What were you saying? Okay.
Yeah.
Stand up.
That Harvey said a white man helped him out where he is today. And I noticed how when I go up, I was looking for a lawyer's office, opening and closing at 18. There is some white men out there that will give you a chance. So you can't knock these policemen because we fight against each other.
I'm not knocking anybody. Let me make it clear. I'm not knocking anybody. What I'm saying is that we have to also help ourselves. That we can't sit back and wait for someone else to help us who doesn't look like us all the time.
Right.
I was a member of Jack and Jill, right? Some of my sisters, they were like, we don't want to be a part of Jack and Jill, right? I thought Jack and Jill and the links were important because I thought when we go to other parts of the world and we help children and give them goods, we give them dolls, we give them books, that they should see people who look like them giving them these things so that they're not left to feel insecure or inferior, but that they see people helping them that look just like them. Because the world systemically says something differently. So it's important. I'm not knocking white people. I went to school with a lot of white people, but I'm saying that we have to take responsibility for ourselves, for where we are, and in our communities ourselves.
Thank you so much for all your questions. Very thought-provoking. At this time, I'd like to, before I let our trustees from the Roosevelt Public Library make a comment, we have some gifts for Ms. Shabazz. We have a local artist, Mr. D'Angelo. Come right up.
Yeah, Mike D'Angelo. I won't
Mike D'Angelo.
Angelo Douglas is my real name.
Show everybody the portrait he made. And this is. Oh. Can everybody hear me? Yes, this is Mr. D'Angelo who did this portrait, and he's going to present it to Ms. Shabazz to take home. So.
Walk on the stage or? Go on the stage.
Read He has suddenly become famous.
Malcolm X, because I remember I was in 3rd grade class, and my teacher took us. I remember I was in 3rd grade class, and our 3rd grade teacher in the old school took us to, movie cinemas to see Malcolm X when he first came out of movie cinemas. So that was one of the reasons why I was also inspired by doing a portrait of that. And I also did a book cover, like for a book project for this typography class when I was doing the Catholic Gibbs in Manhattan. It was an autobiography of Malcolm X too, so I had a good grade on that too. Like a so she said, my typography teacher, instructor said, I think you did a very good job on that. That was back in 2007. So, just learning about Malcolm X and his legacy, inspiration, and like you stated, like how he's influenced you, influenced me, influenced all of us, Malcolm X and all of us. And basically, I always have to say that we all have roles. I have a role, you have a role, and we all have roles to just contribute to the world as well. So,
Thank you so much. And one last tribute before the Board of Trustees speaks. Sherwin has a poem that he wrote, so he's going to read it and present it to Ms. Shabazz also.
Evening, Roosevelt. Give it up for the artist right here, Angelo. On a personal note, I'm a comedian, but I always call him the Spike Lee of artistry because he's awesome. He's awesome. All right. Just to let everybody know here, Sherwin Xl, the XL that I use, I put the L from Luther and Malcolm, and from Martin Luther King, and the X is for Malcolm. And the both of them, to me, were great men. And as the brother was talking about having leaders in here, I've always wanted to be a great speaker, and those men inspired me. So all of you men in here who heard her speak, and all of the men in here speak, let us inspire you, and for you to inspire other children as you get older. Last but not least, I took a literary class here in Roosevelt, in the library, and they helped me sharpen my skills. So here we go. This is entitled, My Brother Malcolm. Once a child born, now a man transformed. Every time I think of him, my mind is sharpened, soul uplifted, and this warrior's heart is warmed. There's nobody like my brother Malcolm. February 21st, 1965, and February 21st, 1971, my birthday. These two dates are destined and locked in, and I grinned. Why? From the first time I heard this royal black lion roar, all I can think then and now is more, more, more. There's nobody like my brother Malcolm. With such intense intelligence, he spoke so powerful and passionately for his people to realize who they are and raise their consciousness. There's nobody like my brother Malcolm. Denzel Washington and Spike Lee did justice for the king. But as the saying goes, ain't nothing like the real thing. I'm sure if Ozzie Davis or Ruby Dee were here with me, they agree with me by any means necessary. You better believe that there's nobody like my brother Malcolm. This is an original poem only by Sherwin Xl. With love and respect from me to your family, because your father inspired me so much. I love you, your family, and blessings to you. Thank you for coming to Roosevelt.
Thank you very much. And lastly, before Ms. Shabazz does her book signing, I'm sure the Board of Trustees would like to say something to you. We have two of our board members here, Mr. Frank Abel and Mr. Wilton Robinson, who's taking pictures.
Good afternoon, everyone. We hope you enjoyed this. And as a trustee for almost 15 years, we've been